Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about the mic. Well, let me just kind of do a quick intro. So welcome back to the Labrador Energy Podcast. Today we have Pascal Hausberger all the way from the other side of town here in Berlin.
Yeah.
Because he's working from home. You're working from home, Pascal, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he's originally from Vienna, but he's also kind of Korean.
I am Korean, 50%.
Nice. Do you speak any Korean? I've never actually asked you.
I do speak. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
I do speak
It's
Korean. Yeah.
bibimbap.
Bibimbap, kimbap, kimchi, all that. I just
yeah.
ate Korean actually, Korean and Japanese.
Oh, really? Did you go out for a Korean or?
No, I just had like the instant noodles. So I made jjajangmyeon, which is one of my favorite Korean foods.
Or like anytime you make food, it's Korean because you're Korean.
I guess. And then I had miso soup paste, so I just made the soup.
Made some Korean pasta today. That could be a... Well, the pasta is just normal, but I'm Korean. Henceforth, the pasta is Korean.
Have you tried jjajangmyeon?
I don't think so. I think I've tried. I've been to a lot of Korean restaurants when I was in Japan, but I don't remember what was on the menu because I think people were just ordering for me. So,
so you probably had a lot of barbecue then, right?
I've been to a lot of barbecue. Yeah. I remember because whenever we would go off work and basically we're wearing suits, and every time you go to the Korean barbecue, it's like, okay, fuck, the suit's fucked because you got to take it to dry cleaning the next day.
Right. Yeah, everything stinks. Also with kimchi, I realize now. I mean, with a mask, constant wearing of the mask. You can smell your own breath really well. So the kimchi just, oh my God, it's
overpowers. Okay, well, let's start off on a very Korean note, yeah.
Yeah, just to explain how Korean I am, I love kimchi.
But let's go to a bit of an intro because actually this helps me kind of know a bit more as well. So did you actually live in Korea?
I did, yeah, from 1 to 5.
Okay, so you were born in Vienna.
In Austria, in Tyrol, where my father's from. So he's up from the mountains, from a place called Alpbach, which is a very, very small village, like 2,000 people-ish. Okay. When he was born, probably even less. And,
right, okay.
And then I was born in Innsbruck, where the Olympics happened before.
Right.
Yeah, I was born there, and then we moved to Vienna, and then we moved to Korea.
Right, okay. And this is because of your dad's work, or is it because of your mom's work, or?
Yeah, because of my dad's work, he was a cook. He was a chef at hotels. So he was at the Hilton Seoul. Okay. And then we lived there, and then we moved to Japan, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because, the IMF, the financial crisis hit Korea really badly in the late 90s. So we moved to Japan. Right. To Osaka, actually. So my dad was working at the Hilton Osaka, and then we were living in Kobe.
Right, okay. Oh, okay.
And I went to the German school there, and my sister went to the international school, and then we moved to Tokyo.
Okay.
For 2 years also, yeah.
All right, that's pretty good, man. But do you still remember? Because I think you're pretty small.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Japan was the best time of my childhood. I always say that. I mean, you also love Japan. I mean, I think everyone loves Japan when you live there.
Yeah, it's like a different world, right?
Definitely. I mean, for me, it was even better maybe because as a kid, you don't get the pressure of Japanese, right? I mean, when you work there, it must be really tough.
Right. Yeah, so, the thing is, as a child, you just get all the fun, the games, all the shit,
exactly.
Right?
And it's safe. I mean, for kids, you can walk everywhere, and all the 7-Elevens, and the food is amazing. Everyone's super friendly.
I mean, there's been a lot of documentaries about like basically the kids, the self-sufficient children of Japan. They're like 5 years old. They take the metro. They go to like wherever they want to go, right?
Yeah, Kumon and all the after school programs.
Yeah, you got the Suica.
Yeah. I mean, Japan is amazing, and it was great because I remember when I lived there. That was like late 90s, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. Early 2000s. Okay, so you'd have been there like
insane. It was absolutely amazing. That I mean, it was so high standard for then, and now I think everywhere else the technology has caught up, but back then Japan was like by far much more.
Right.
I mean, even now, so but yeah.
I mean, I think from a work perspective, they still have like the K-Tai, the small little phones that they still use, and a lot of people still use those, right, instead of smartphones.
Right.
I think
so
now
I feel like
not as much, but they were. No, that's fine. Go ahead. What are you saying?
No, sorry.
Yeah, I think now basically everybody's on iPhones and Androids and whatnot. But I remember like when I first got there, like 2011, there was still a lot of 2012 actually. Huh? Was it 2012 that people were still using the little, Actually, I had like one of those little small ones. Hello, moshi. Yeah.
You speak Japanese?
Yeah, I mean, I speak a bit, but like to be honest, like I haven't been using it like almost 4 years, 5 years now. So like my Japanese is like fucked. And I used to just pick up like enough to kind of get by, right? Like, oh, it's my And this kind of,
hey, your accent is good.
Yeah, I'm a good with the year, right? Because all about the I think language is all about like listening and then kind of try to emulate the sound, right?
Yeah.
And then you
I mean, your Japanese sounds better than your German.
No, my German is like bitte eine kleine 9. I don't have any of the language. Okay, so you guys ended up moving afterwards. So you were how long? Sorry, maybe ask you again. How old were you when you left?
We left Japan when I was 9, turning 10, and then we moved back to Austria.
Okay, so you have some early memories of it. Okay, that's pretty cool. And basically,
it was some. Yeah.
Did you already speak German fluently by that time?
Fluently, yes, but it was very bad. So at home, I spoke Korean. I speak Korean with my mom, or English in the family, because my parents don't speak their respective languages.
Right.
Well.
Okay.
So we spoke English at home, and German I only spoke with my friends or in school, because I always went to German school.
Right.
And so the German school in Tokyo is in Yokohama, which is kind of like a neighboring city. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I used to live in Yokohama for a bit. What was it? Around, it was Yokohama, like 3 stations up. What was it called? Fuck, I forgot the name of the station. Anyway, it's around there.
Chiba? No, Chiba is...
No, Chiba is a different...
Right?
It's Yokohama main station, then you take another line for like 3 stops and you get to the place where I used to live. But yeah, it was like pretty intense, right? Right next to the stadium, actually.
Oh, yeah.
No, next to Chinatown. You know Chinatown?
Hey.
Yeah, it was like Chinatown in Yokohama.
Okay. Oh, because it's a port city.
Yeah. So they have like a
wasn't the Diamond the cruise ship that when Corona just started, Diamond Princess? I think that was docking in Yokohama. Yeah.
Potentially, yeah. There's a big. It's like just Tokyo is so big, right? It's like mind-blowingly like just like literally concrete just spreading out for like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I remember you mentioned the stadium. I was there in 2002 when the World Cup happened, and I was actually there for the World Cup final.
Oh, really?
It was biggest dream of my childhood, and then.
And you were just like in the fucking bleachers with go.
No, because I was cheering for Germany actually at the time.
I see.
And Brazil won, so but I was happy for Brazil as well. They definitely deserved it.
Well, I think Germany got the payback on that, didn't they?
I guess years later, yeah. I mean, also I should have mentioned that I was cheering for Germany, because as an Austrian, that's a complete no-go.
Right. Okay.
But
there was
at the time was
no Austrian team in the finals.
No, I mean, we were barely in the World Cup, dude.
So when you went back to Vienna, so basically you went from Tokyo back to Vienna, and then you started doing school there, is it Innsbruck?
No, Vienna.
Okay, and then how was that kind of how did you fit back into the whole kind of Austrian system? Was that the big kind of cultural shock, like reintegrating as a third culture kid yourself?
It was, because I am Austrian by citizen and my dad is Austrian, but I never felt like an Austrian, and I still don't really, because when I came back, I was treated immediately like a different. I mean, it was a different race for sure, but I was never treated as an Austrian. I never felt that way.
You're like a foreigner?
And it was the first time. Yeah, because whenever I went to school beforehand, in the German school also, it was always mixed. So you'd have a lot of mixed kids, or complete Asian kids, or complete German kids. And so there was no racism there. But then in school, that was the first time it hit me. And then, it took a while. But I'm so glad that I went to that school. And I'm still really good friends with many of my
classmates.
Schoolmates, classmates. Thanks.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so like what? The people were saying like, oh, you look Asian. Have some kimchi, or what was the big deal like? Was it like bullying or something?
Sorry, you broke off for a second.
I was saying like, was it like in terms of like you said discrimination, just like kids being mean, like, hey man, you're Asian, or like have some kimchi? What was the?
Yeah, I mean stuff like that. I mean, and also I wasn't used to it, so I was also very sensitive to it for sure. But then I mean I hardened a bit more, not too much, but
not too much.
Yeah, I mean, it still bothers me when I walk down the street and then people yell out like "ni hao" and all that stuff.
Oh, that still happens in Austria? What the fuck?
Oh yeah. Austria way more than here. It happened here a couple of times, but Austria quite a bit.
What, here in Berlin?
Yeah, which is surprising, but
that's pretty surprising.
Yeah, it happened to me in Kreuzberg am Neukölln, which is a very international place.
Like what, the Turkish people, the Germans?
I actually was always by non-Germans.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's kind of weird. I mean,
exactly, because they face racism.
Wouldn't it be weird? Like you walk around and see somebody from like a different, hey man, kebab. What? That's me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not offensive, I guess.
Yeah,
but
it's just ignorant.
It's just this. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, in school it wasn't, and I was the only non-white kid.
Oh, in the whole school?
No.
Right.
In my class, and then I don't know. I just couldn't really.
Like kind of mingle with the people, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, it was great.
I guess it's like a little
bit. It was.
Good.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No, I think it's the connection. Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, I mean, I also bonded with them really well after a while because we were in class every single day till 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually we also had school on Saturdays. Mm-hmm. So it was like a half boarding school.
Well, why the fuck did you guys have school on Saturdays?
I don't know. At the time it was usual. We only had till lunchtime, so till noon, but still every single Saturday as well. And then we had a lot of class trips. And I was in the same class with the same classmates for 8 years.
Oh, okay.
So in the end, we were very, very close. And when my father passed away, for example, when I was 16, all of my entire class came to the funeral as well. I mean, all that I'll never forget, for example.
Right. Okay.
I'm really grateful, yeah.
Pretty intense, man. Okay, so so basically kind of like once you kind of snuck in there, they're like, okay, he's one of us. Did you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Did you guys get into like, did you bond like over stuff like anime or something like that?
No. I mean, Game Boy, I think so, yeah.
Because I think now I'm on TikTok and I'm doing this TikTok stuff. And it seems like basically when I was kind of maybe 17, 16, I used to kind of watch a bit of anime around then, but it was basically like a very niche kind of thing, right? It wouldn't be something they would come out and say like, yeah, I watch animes. We're like, what the fuck is that? You know? There was like, it'd be like a lot of stigma around cartoons in general, right? Like, my parents were like, stop watching cartoons. You're gonna, what the fuck are you doing?
Was anime big in Romania?
Not that big. I think not as big as it is now. Because basically, I'm spending a lot of time on TikTok now, right? Because I'm uploading stuff, and it's basically the audience. It's growing quite fast. I have like about 11,000 followers now organically on TikTok, and majority of them tend to be like Romanians between 14 to 25. And you get a lot of content from the UK as the US as well. So you see a lot of these like, basically people that are 18, 21 doing like best Naruto characters, best whatever, and you have like massive engagement and massive and it's like Romanian kind of like teenagers now also super into the anime stuff, like the Bleach, Naruto's and all the One Piece, whatever. And they do like these little TikToks that are like, yeah, my top 3 characters and whatever. And it's like 200,000 likes. I was like, what?
Wow.
Interesting how
200,000 likes.
Like it's interesting how this subculture that was at the time of subculture is now like a major part of the basically it looks like the teenage culture in Romania and some other parts.
What made you actually go to Japan in the first place? Because you were in the UK and then
I mean, I had originally kind of wanted to travel to basically study Japanese in university because I had a bit of like I was watching a lot of anime on TV and I thought it was really cool and I originally wanted to kind of do that, but then my parents were like, the fuck are you talking about?
Okay.
Yeah. So then I ended up choosing a university to study at in the UK where they also had like a course of Japanese. I ended up getting into law in the Japanese one, so we had to kind of choose the law one because it made more sense. So then I went there. I was there for 4 years, and then I traveled a bit to Southeast Asia, and I wanted to go to Japan, and I went there, and then basically, as it happened, I ended up finding a job there as well. So it was kind of like I wanted to go to Asia. Initially, I went to Singapore for after I finished undergraduate, I went to Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, and I kind of had skipped like Japan. So I was like, oh, I kind of want to check that out as well. So then that's how it happened. And then when I was there, basically, I ended up kind of finding a job as well.
Did you swing by Korea?
I'm sorry?
Okay.
What did you say?
Did you go to Korea as well?
No, I didn't go to Korea. That's one of the things I actually missed. So I haven't been to Korea yet, but hopefully we'll go back there soon. We'll figure out. I went to Hong Kong, like Philippines, Indonesia, and I actually when I was in Singapore, I also went to Laos, Vietnam, and all the other small ones. But never actually Korea, which I heard a lot of good things about Korea. People were talking, they're saying like it's pretty cool, it's super intense, it's like
it's
like Japan but quite different. Yeah. It's a lot more. They're saying it's a lot more party heavy.
Yeah, I think Koreans are more
than Japan. They were saying
maybe more. That's what I mean. This is what my cousin told me, my Korean cousin. So also my part of my family is now Japanese because my aunt married a Japanese man, and that whole family line is Japanese. So
Is this your Korean aunt or your Austrian aunt?
My Korean aunt. But my Austrian uncle married a Romanian woman. So my cousins are also Romanian. Right. Yeah, I think I've told you that before. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty interesting. The Austrians date very internationally.
Yeah, that's your.
Yeah, it's good.
No, that's your bit for Norway, right?
Was it? Oh, they're very beautiful. Yeah. That's been doing good for a lot of the Norwegian content I put on TikTok got a lot of views. I got one that got like 100,000 views about the Norwegians killing themselves. So that did well. Wow. And then it sparked like a debate about immigration in the comments about between like, because I tagged it as like Denmark, Finland, Sweden, and Norway. And then basically it's a whole debate about like who immigrates more to which one in the Nordic countries, and no one's talking shit about like any other nationalities but their Nordic countries. Looks like there's a bit of rivalry between them.
Oh
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Damn.
So that was funny. Okay, nice. And then basically did you end up studying? Now you work as a developer as well, right? You're a software engineer.
Not anymore. So I work in sales, but I sell software.
Oh, okay. So you're actually doing sales. You managed to do the jump.
I did. So actually, I mean, maybe we should also explain how we met in the first place. So we first met at a co-working space here in Berlin. Mm-hmm. And I remember because I was talking of school in Vienna. One of my oldest friends is Flo.
Yeah.
And he also moved to Berlin, and then he started a startup, and I actually eventually started working for him. Mm-hmm. So I was part of his startup, and then we were at this co-working space. You were there as well. And Flo knew like I like comedy, right. And then he was like, "Oh, why don't you talk to Dragos? Do you know Dragos?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And he was like, "Yeah, he's like touring a lot, and he's trying to set up a lot of comedy shows in Factory or WeWork. So why don't you talk to him?" And then I bumped into you in the kitchen, I remember, and I asked you, I like comedy and I hear good things about you. And then you were like, "Oh, perfect! I have an Airbnb experience for €1." Sign up, and then we're gonna do a writing exercise. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then you were immediately like, "Let's do it tomorrow. You have time tomorrow? Okay, let's do it tomorrow."
Yeah, because you gotta move, right?
Yeah, and the best thing you did was, I remember before we even started writing, you were like, "Okay, now open up your Facebook and sign up for a show." And I know the organizer, Chris. So you're definitely gonna get a spot, and you're gonna do this next Monday. And I was like, But then, we did it. And then I'm so grateful that you pushed me into it. So this is something I wanted to do for a while, but like that was like the last.
So that's the thing, man. You gotta jump into it because a lot of people just postpone it. And because I think even looking back at it, I basically, when I first started doing comedy, I kind of like danced around the idea for so long. Mm-hmm. And like initially I was like in Japan and I wanted to do in Japan, and I went for a couple of shows and I just watched. But I surprisingly, like, based on what you know me now, I never had like the courage to kind of ask the guy to kind of put me on. I just kind of watched, and then I ended up, like I said, going to like a show. And that show, basically, one of the guys that was setting up the open mic sent me a message to everybody that had gone to the show, right? "Hey, there's this comedian coming to town. It's a very impromptu show. We're only doing it like he's coming here tomorrow. No one else wanted to do the show for him. Can you invite friends? We got like 50 seats in this bar." And then the comedian was, I didn't know the guy at the time. So he was like, there's a comedian called Hannibal Buress and the other guy, Eric Andre. And then,
wow.
Yeah, exactly. And then I tell one of my friends from one of my colleagues at work, "Hey man, you guys want to come to this comedy show? It's like $15. It's like $15 the entrance, but apparently it's like this, I don't know him, but it's a known comedian in the US. His name is Hannibal Buress with his friend Eric Andre." My friend was like, "What? You got tickets to Hannibal Buress?"
Yeah, for $15 too. I mean, that's wow.
Exactly, because like they were just traveling on vacation, and my friend was from New York, and he had seen like the Eric Andre show, and they were aware. They were aware of like the situation. So then we went there, and then we were sitting in the front, and then we saw like hang out. I have like a picture hanging out with Hannibal Buress and that kind of stuff. But then after that,
this was in Singapore or in Japan?
This was in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then afterwards, like only a year after that, I ended up going to like Singapore, and I basically started doing comedy in Singapore. So like, again, it was kind of like tippy-toeing around it.
Yeah, I think everyone does, right? No one really does it immediately, and then...
Yeah, so that's why I think like if somebody would have pushed me at that time, I think I would have just jumped on and said you would have done it, right?
Yeah, I think I would have taken much longer, and then you pushed me into it, and I remember I was so nervous the whole days before, and then I remember that day we were also having lunch together with Flo also.
Right.
And oh my God, I was so nervous. And you were like, just do it and we're going to have fun. And
yeah, it was.
Oh man, I was so nervous. And there were so many people there. I didn't think that, like there were 50, 60, 70 people.
Yeah, it was quite a packed night as well, right?
Yeah. And I was on in the second half too. So the whole time I was just nervous. I remember.
Do you remember when it was? Do you remember when it was?
Yeah, June 19th.
Oh, okay. So it's almost coming up to a year, right?
Almost a year, yeah.
Oh,
and I remember, I don't know if you remember this guy, but he was like this traveling guy. He was, I think he had done stand-up for 6 months or so. Mm-hmm. And I had printed out my material, right? So I was still going through it. And then he looked at me really arrogantly and he was like, "You're going to say it word by word?"
Oh, this guy ate shit, I remember, right?
Yeah. And then he was super arrogant to me and then he ate shit. I was like, "Oh my, yeah."
This is why stand-up is nice, because like a lot of these guys that have like a massive ego, they're like, "Yeah, I can do this. It's easy." They go there and it's like, "Oh, okay, you have nothing interesting to say,"
Yeah, it was silent when you went on. Oh,
yeah, like the douchey kind of, I get by on my looks or whatever. I remember, I don't know if it was like a.
Yeah, he was a cool guy for sure, and good looking, but.
I get by on my cool attitude, and then you go in there and eat shit. It's like, what the fuck, do something, bro. You can't just,
Especially because he was so arrogant on stage, like people didn't like him, and then.
Yeah, that's funny because I love those moments where people just eat completely shit and it destroys their arrogance, right?
Yeah. Also, also the first time always goes a bit better, I feel like. The very first time, because especially when the host says, "Oh, this is the first time." Chris did that for me, for example. So the audience is very, very helpful. And then when you go on the second time, you think all the jokes are going to hit as well.
Right.
But just look at the face of a comedian when they do it the second time and do the jokes that are kind of weak. And then you can see the blood rushing into their face, like,
the unexpected, yeah.
I guess.
Whoa. I can't get that rush again since like I did last time. What?
Exactly.
So how's it been since then? You've been, you've obviously been very active in the scene, right?
Yeah, I tried to. So in the beginning, I did it. Then I did it like once a week or so, and then I started doing multiple times. A week as soon as possible, and then until March, I did it over 200 times. So in like 8-9 months, yeah. So
do you still keep track of them, like in a spreadsheet or something? Or?
I do, yeah, because I realized I was bombing so hard so often, and I felt discouraged. Everyone goes through this. I felt very discouraged, but when I wrote down, okay, at least I did one more set, and I just kept track of the number, and it just kept me motivating. So. Even though I bombed, it was a success in my view. And then
I think this is the difficult thing about comedy, because it's all about failing in public, right? It's like with other kind of arts, you get to practice in like in your room and get better at it or whatever. But with this, you have to actually practice in public and eat shit in public, right?
Yeah. Did you eat shit at first?
This is the thing, is I think at that time I had like a bit of a like even with this last week when they did the show at Fabian's Place, right? And then basically in my mind, it was a great set. Everything went amazing. I killed it. Fucking back at it. And I watched the set afterwards. And I was like, oh, this is like under mediocre. I was like, what the fuck? so I think
I remember it went well.
Yeah. So
I really like the. Yeah.
I think for me, like, at the time is like, this is, I don't know. Like when I'm on stage, I always feel like I do better than I actually do after I see it afterwards. So like I think maybe I have like a bit of a, I don't know, like a reality distortion field in my mind. When I'm there, I'm like, I'm just happy to be there. I'm like, yeah, things going great, fucking nailing it, right? And then when I watched it, I was like, this is not that. Dane did so much better that night than I did, right? I don't know if you were there for Dane stuff.
No, I had to leave right after your set.
Yeah, he killed it. It was like insane. But also I was the first one, so I guess the crowd needed a bit of warming up. But it's like I think I did bomb, but then at that point it wasn't about bombing. It was about just like come back and do better and try out different things and see what else works. Like now I've been working on like for the past couple of days. I think I've spent like literally about 8 hours just looking at like this joke, trying to get it to work, and I think I might have finally cracked it. Like literally, I was getting so fucking annoyed because I'm like, fuck, I spent 4 hours today trying to crack this and nothing. And then I walked around for a bit, and I think now I finally cracked it. So we'll see how it works.
What is the joke?
I want to do a joke about like basically because I wanted to kind of add a bit more of a emotional level into this joke. So I wanted to do a joke about like the core of the joke was basically a pandemic of self-worth, of diminished self-worth in Eastern Europe, right? Like people have like a bad sense of self-worth. So this is the idea that I want to communicate, but I don't want to sound preachy, right? So then I figured like, how the fuck can I communicate this? And I wanted to put it in the context of another joke. You know, the asparagus stories with the Romanian asparagus pickers? So I put into that, and I kind of like reworked it like, yeah, they were interviewing this asparagus farm owner. And he was like, yeah, we really like Romanian workers and Polish workers and Bulgarian workers because they just like to work. You know, they work through holidays, they work through weekends, they work through Easter, they work through Hanukkah, they work through Yom Kippur, they work, and then just like round up a lot of these holidays. Ganesha, they work for Holi. That's the kind of point. And then at the end, I say, yeah, we just love it. They just like to work. And I'm like, yeah, they're not working because they love to work. They work because they have a diminished sense of self-worth. And the only way they can get self-worth is through external elements, not through internal elements, which is money, right? Like the diminished sense of self-worth is such a big thing in Eastern Europe that during the coronavirus, the trending thing on Romanian Google wasn't coronavirus, it was Gucci. This is true because people wanted to buy something so they get some self-worth. So this is the idea is very complex, but I'm just trying to like compress it, right? Without sounding it, and just speaking it out loud now, it seems like I haven't quite gotten there. But the idea is how do you compress, this complex idea of like what is it like to kind of be there, and then basically compress it into something that you can deliver easy, right? Let me look at the notes to see what I wrote down, because I think I managed to write down something a lot more succinct.
How many minutes have you written down during the pandemic?
I mean, I've written quite a lot, but I don't think I'll be able to use a lot of them, right?
Right.
Okay. Because there's something you have. Okay.
Also, going back to the thing, you were hanging out with Hannibal Buress in Tokyo. How was that like?
It was just like, it wasn't like for 5 hours, just like 5, 6, 7 minutes after the show, right? So just just asking like, yo, what's up? Because I didn't even know who the guy was, right? So I didn't even know what to ask him. Hey, how's it going? Good set, good stuff, man. He was like, yeah, you Palestinian? I was like, no.
That's what he said?
Yeah. You look Palestinian. I was like, nah, I'm Romanian. Okay, cool. Basically, like with that kind of demeanor.
Was it like in a bar or was it in a?
Yeah, it was like an Irish bar, yeah.
Wow. So not many people came.
No, I mean, there was basically the show sold out, but like, obviously in Japan, if the show sold out, people don't show up, afterwards, right? So it's about like 50 people, I guess. Wasn't like a massive amount of people. But yeah, it was decent. I guess it was nice. It was nice hang out.
Yeah, because he could sell out.
I mean, if he had, this is the thing. It's also Japan, and it's like 2000 something. So I don't know if he could sell out like massively. He could definitely sell out like maybe like 100, 200, 300. I know like Daniel Sloss did Japan recently, and he sold out like maybe 2,000, 3,000 seater.
Wow.
But Daniel Sloss, I guess, is a bit more well known than Hannibal Buress, because I guess Hannibal Buress is more, I don't know, like more of a specific kind of type of comedian.
Do you like Japanese comedy?
I mean, it's a lot of slaps. It's a lot of slapstick humor, right? It's a lot. I've never seen like Japanese stand-up, but the ones that they have on TV, it's a lot of like character dresses, and it's about like the personality of the character, right? And like the way that they interact with each other. Yeah. You have like the outrageous guy, and then the straight man type of comedy, right?
Yeah.
Whereas always one guy kind of like, what the fuck are you doing, and then the other guy is like being ridiculous, and sometimes you have the very very.
Yeah, it's always never alone. It's always in a team.
Yeah. So it's more, again, it's not word based. Like for example, in English based kind of stand-up comedy, it's a lot of word play and kind of like communication, right? Whereas in Japanese, it's a lot of physical, look silly, do silly stuff, and like be like the Joker, be like a bit of a clown kind of stuff.
Right. I think it's slowly getting there though. I know Korea has also had a lot of that type of humor where you do it in a team and stuff, and now
I think
stand-up getting bigger.
Yeah, I think it's because a lot of the people basically like it's like theater kind of becoming a bit more modern, right? Like I think if you look at stand-up now, it's a lot of it's basically evolution of theater. People don't go as much for theater, but you have this more compressed kind of way of delivering the message, because that's what stand-up comedy is. It's kind of like, I think it works well for the current generation because it kind of keeps the low attention span engaged, right? Whereas with theater, I think you need to have a higher attention span. You kind of be involved in the play, and whereas with this, if you do jokes every kind of 20 seconds, it's a lot more easier to keep the attention of the audience, right? And this is what I've seen with and this is what I've been experimenting with TikTok recently. I've stopped putting like 1 minute bits, and I've just been putting like the 20-second kind of jokes that I have, or the stuff that gets fast with the punchline, and those do well because nobody has time to watch a whole minute video, right?
Damn, it's insane.
Yeah, and you have to kind of basically, that's why it's so difficult to kind of, even like when delivering these difficult topics, if you want to talk about self-worth in Eastern Europe or general the world, or why people buy, items to gain a sense of self-worth, you have to compress that so much that it actually still delivers the message, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's takes a lot of brain power. It's like, so for example, I feel like I've made some progress with the current joke, but it's still not there, right? But the one that I did, for example, the joke I did last week about what will the neighbors think, right?
Yeah.
That was also like that kind of same situation. Like it's still a lot of talking at the start, but then it compresses like a very intense kind of like feeling in that joke, in a punchline.
But that joke you had before already. I mean, you didn't write it during the pandemic, right?
Well, what will the neighbors think?
Yeah.
No, I wrote it during the pandemic.
Did you?
Yeah. So then that was the first time I actually tried it on stage.
The stabbing.
Yeah. That's the first time I tried it on stage. I hadn't had it before.
Oh, maybe I knew it because we
we were doing the writing.
Okay, maybe.
Okay. I think you knew it because we were doing the joke writing. So I told it in like the joke writing context, but people don't know. Sometimes we do like in the evening joke writing sessions. Mm-hmm. So I think I told it in that context, and I told a couple of times to Carl and Anna, but then like I never actually told it on stage. That was the first time on stage.
Okay.
But I told
that did really well.
I told it in a Zoom meeting, and basically it was like the only joke in that particular Zoom comedy show that actually got like a laugh out loud from everybody in the Zoom.
Why is it? Because I remember you did one new joke. I liked it personally, but it didn't do that well. Like the neighbor thing, the thing where you say obviously it's horrible. COVID killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it also killed a lot of really bad people.
Yeah.
And I thought that premise was really good, and I really liked the punch and everything. But I don't know, it just didn't.
I think
it's
too fresh. And it's also people still dying of COVID. It's not like they.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. I think, and people don't know. Like, oh, should I laugh at this? Should I not laugh at this?
Right. Or do you think it's because they have empathy even for bad people?
I think they don't know. They don't know. I think they weren't kind of like involved enough into the set. Maybe I will do that joke like a bit later in the set where they kind of trust me. So I think there wasn't a relationship kind of formed with the crowd in that context, right?
Oh, okay.
So they're like, should I? They don't know anybody around them. It's like, people dying of COVID, but like, of course, they're dying, but it's probably some bad people dying. Somebody's like somebody doesn't have to pay mortgage or doesn't have to pay rent this month because the guy died, and who do I pay? What am I gonna do? Oops! Suddenly you have 2 months of free mortgage or free rent. It's not that bad.
Yeah,
or like
I thought you meant like really bad people, like as you mentioned, Cosby.
Yeah. So that's
Harvey Weinstein.
That's where I wanted to take it. I wanted to take it from like, if Kim Jong-un dies tomorrow, it's not that bad. Thanks Corona, maybe it's all worth it. But I'm sure there is some guy that his life was in shambles before the coronavirus, and then suddenly his parents died, and now he has an inheritance. I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible, but it's also very convenient. Yeah. See, so it's like kind of wrong, but at the same time,
Right. You have to play with the emotions of the audience, right?
I mean, he's not. I want the audience to say he's not wrong. Like for example, if your landlord died tomorrow, and then there was a confusion about his death, and you didn't know who you have to pay rent, and then suddenly you don't have to pay rent for 6 months. I mean, it sucks that he died, but
it's still tragic. I mean,
but sometimes you have to take life with what you can, right? So I'm just playing around with these jokes. I'm trying to figure out like the problem with, like I was telling you, the second hour that I'm working on now, like I have like the Norwegian jokes and like this really like silly kind of laughy jokes, but then I don't have like an emotional core to it. So then that's why I'm kind of working with the sense of self-worth stuff, trying to figure out exactly how to add that emotional core in there to make it a bit more of to get some involvement from the audience, right? So it's not just like empty jokes that people are not going to remember afterwards, right?
Right.
At least that's what I try to do with my particular comedy. Try to have jokes. You need to have jokes, but at the same time, you also want to have like something a bit more, a layer of depth, right?
Mm-hmm.
A layer of like something heavy that's like, oh yeah, Amanda, he's right. Like some form of social importance or some form of cultural importance.
I thought that was really good what you mentioned in your last podcast. You were talking about every comic will do jokes about COVID, obviously.
Yeah.
But instead of doing that, focus on how COVID has influenced your personality. So if you're anxious, And I thought that was really interesting. So that's
because I think people want to see the COVID is not going to stay relevant that much, but then COVID damage done to you is going to stay more relevant, right?
Right.
So I was like, yeah, super excited. I think I came out of this pandemic a bit darker, started watching documentaries about children getting kidnapped in South Sudan just to make myself feel better about COVID.
Oh, God.
Because people can kind of relate to that. It's not about it's not, of course you're saying a terrible thing, but at the same time, people can relate with the fact that, shit's pretty fucking depressing, right?
Yeah. Do you watch a lot of those documentaries?
No, it's just, I didn't even look for it. It just got recommended to me.
Oh, but it must recommend you for some reason, right?
Yeah. Because I was watching videos of Romania's communists that are getting executed before that. So I think that's
Ceausescu.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's it was executed on live TV, right? So it's the only kind of executions that was live televised. And then again I kind of fell into these little loophole of watching. I wanted to say, maybe I should watch some good speak I watched Arnold Schwarzenegger giving a speech. Then I started watching Putin giving a speech, and then I ended up watching Hitler giving a speech. Then I ended up watching Ceausescu giving a speech, and then I ended up watching Ceausescu getting murdered. That was the loop. That was the recommendation loop on YouTube, right? Yeah. So then I was like, okay, can I turn this? And that's how I came up with the idea of sometimes when people die, it's not that bad. Because literally, when people murdered Ceausescu on live television in Romania, everybody was celebrating. You see, people are oh, I'm so happy he's dead.
Wow,
it's intense, right? Yeah.
Wow. He was what, 89?
Yeah, 89. Yeah. Christmas 89, Day, okay. 25 December. Yeah.
His wife as well, right?
Yeah. They shot them both on the same day. She was like, "No, we're gonna shoot together. If you're gonna kill us together." And everybody was like, "Okay." Okay. It's there was no resistance. It's super intense, right? It's super but again, it's so intense that you kind of analyze that, and just your parents. What I want to do is I want to talk a bit about how does that influence? Everything now is all about political correctness and not talking about dark stuff. But then if you grow up in the context where your parents watch people get executed on TV, that has to form some form of PTSD that then kind of waterfalls down onto you.
They didn't even censor anything?
No, man, it's pop, pop, pop. Yeah, 2 shots.
And you see the bodies fall down and stuff?
Yeah, you see them they lift the head. It's oh, well, he's dead.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow,
and again, that's why I was saying that in the joke that I do is Ceausescu's death gave people so much peace of mind that we actually have a yoga position called, that they named the yoga position after the position he died in. That's not true. I just made it up.
Okay.
But they have it as a joke, right?
Whoa.
Because then I was what else gives you peace of mind? Ceausescu's death gave people peace of mind. What else does give you peace of mind? It's yoga gives you peace of mind, right? So that's kind of how that joke particularly came into it. Right. That's one of the new jokes I'm working on now.
I guess it's also a bit like when Osama bin Laden was murdered or killed or assassinated.
Yeah. Right?
Americans were celebrating, I guess, in a way. It's kind
also, Saddam Hussein. And I think Gaddafi as well. Right. Yeah. There was pictures of...
Right, Gaddafi, actually the Libyan people were celebrating, right? And
yeah. So then there were pictures of him as well. So I actually looked into that as well. I was like, let's see who else got killed on, on social media. Yeah, so then I kind of ended up going a bit down the dark path, but I think I have enough kind of light material to kind of start to show off with and then kind of go into this stuff later on.
Do you already have a name for your special?
The first one or the second one? The first one, I think I'm going to use, I was thinking of calling Labrador Dreams, to use the podcast name and then kind of talk about dreams. Because the way I think about it is I want to talk about I have this joke that was in the first special, the first kind of hour, which is dreams in Eastern Europe. How dreams are different. In what was it? In America, it's go follow your dreams. In Asia, it's go follow my dreams. Be a doctor, be an engineer. In Eastern Europe, it's follow, no dreams. And then the idea was kind of explore that concept and why there aren't any dreams in Eastern Europe. That was kind of what I wanted to have at the core, right? And then basically build around it. So that's kind of, and then the answer to why aren't there any dreams in Eastern Europe came from the answer to that was there's a diminished sense of self-worth, right? People don't have the imagination to have a dream, the dream is to work in a call center, not be on Mars, right? Not fly to Mars.
Right.
So
do you think it's really still the case?
I think it is still the case to some degree. It's still obviously I don't know if it's the same in Austria. Maybe you can kind of correct me or not, but it's still an obsession in like from what I see from TikTok and other avenues, an obsession with material things. People want to get like Gucci belts. They want to get like the kids. They want to get Gucci belts. They want to get Air Jordans or whatever the fuck Yeezys. It's an obsession with material. Like a lot of the worth comes from something material, right? There's no form of system to kind of to educate you how to generate worth from like being good at something or something internal, right? Because I think self-worth comes from doing something good or doing something that makes you happy, right?
For sure.
Not from having like a Gucci belt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, also with comedy stand-up, most guys here do it for free, right? I do
exactly, because it gives you a sense of self-worth, right? And it's like it's some form of inner fulfillment, right? Whereas from what I'm seeing, at least like on like the social media or whatever, it's like a lot of people still get that validation from external objects, right? So I want to kind of talk a bit about that, and like how that kind of stops the actual dream element from coming into fruition. At least that's how I think about it. And then after these are the concepts. Now I have to figure out how to deliver them in like a funny, easy way to kind of digest, right? Because like otherwise, if I just go and say, the problem with Romania is people put too much value on objects. Shut the fuck up. This is a TED Talk. So you have to kind of like it's kind of like how you feed like for example like babies pills and food, right?
Again, it's interesting because I also feel like generally when an economy is doing well for a while, then this doesn't happen as much. So what I mean by that is, if you look at Japan, Japanese kids aren't as materialistic, for example, in my opinion, as Korean or Chinese, because Korea and China have been poor for so long,
right?
That now they want money that's the most important thing. In Japan, I feel like less so because just they've been rich for a while.
Yeah, and
I
maybe
think the same thing.
I think the situation is also they've been rich for a while, and at the same time, I guess they don't see it in their parents as much. Like my parents they don't spend as much money on like Gucci stuff. I mean, Japan also has a culture of like quality stuff, right?
Yeah.
People want to buy stuff that's quality, like, but I feel like in Romania, it's not they don't buy expensive things because of quality. They buy it because of status, right?
Oh
yeah. So it takes a bit of time, I guess. And for example, in Japan, the other thing is when I was working in recruitment there, some of the most respected positions were government officials, right? You're working for the Bank of Japan, you're working for like mayor's office. There's a lot of respect for institutions, right? Whereas I think that's not the case in Romania. So perhaps these people that work in institutions, they don't make that much money, but they gain all the respect from the validation from the you are the shacho or whatever, you're the vice president.
Right. Has actually living in Japan changed your personality a bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think I guess a lot more. My way of speaking was a lot more. After coming out of Japan, I had to have a couple of conversations with some people in Singapore. Especially when you go from Japan to Singapore and you work in sales, in Japan you're extremely polite, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be extremely polite. Whereas in Singapore, it tends to be more of the Chinese kind of attitude where you have to be more
aggressive.
Yeah. So like people don't want to waste time with like fucking how much. I hope that doesn't come across as racist, but that is the mentality, right? It's like don't waste my time. How much what's the salary? Can I get more? Can I get 20% more? No, okay. It's more of that, right?
Yeah, in Japan you would be like, sumimasen. You always apologize.
Yeah. It's like a 4-month process to explain what the team is, who are the other people, what the backgrounds are, why all this benefit you. It's a lot more. I think they're more quality oriented, right? Because they know I think they take decisions more seriously, I guess. I don't know, but like, what was the difference between like Austria and Germany for you when you came here? Was there a big difference in culture, or is it like relatively similar?
No, I mean, it's relatively similar. Berlin, I wouldn't consider Germany. Mm-hmm. It seems very different. So I speak English most of the time here, even, and everyone's super international. What I like about Berlin is it's so international that I feel like there's no racism. I mean, I did tell you. I mean, obviously there's some racism here, but very little, and everyone's super friendly. I mean, everyone complains about Berliners being unfriendly, but go to Vienna and
I mean, do you interact with a lot of German people here? Because I
definitely less friendly there.
I personally interact with very few German people. It's mostly like international.
Yeah, and the Germans you do meet, you speak English to them, right? And they speak English fluently.
Yeah, so it's a different kind of German, I guess. But we moved here for like university, or why did you move here?
Yeah, I moved here for university, and
what was the reason for that? Is it cheaper here? Is it better courses, or?
I wanted to get out of Vienna. So after high school, I had to do my mandatory civilian service.
What is that?
So I was a paramedic
in the army.
Instead of the army. So I was in the ambulance.
So everybody has that in Vienna. Everybody has that in Austria.
Yeah.
How
so
long
Flo,
is that
my friend. Military is for 6 months. Civilian service is 9 months.
Okay.
So I was in, and then you can also do it's called Auslandsdienst, I think, or Gedenkdienst, which is where they send you abroad to work in a like a Holocaust memorial facility.
Like,
so some of my friends did that too.
Like what? Like the tour guide? This is where they kill them. Okay.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's they're part of, obviously we're at fault for the Holocaust, so Austria has to do something. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that. So there's a mandatory kind of like civil service in Vienna, in Austria.
Yeah. So I tried to get out of it because I have a high blood pressure, and then I went to doctors before. I was even exaggerating when I had the interview with the doctor that I feel really
lighthearted, like lightheaded.
Yeah. And then but they didn't buy it, so
flat feet, bro. You gotta get flat feet.
I do, but that's not enough anymore.
Not enough? Okay, interesting.
No.
We have
many kids have it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
These flat feet motherfuckers. Okay, interesting. So then you came here and you were like, okay, Berlin is nice.
Yeah, actually, I was in Netherlands for a couple of months. That's when I started university, but then I dropped out because I didn't like it, and then I moved back to Vienna briefly, and then I applied here, and then I came here.
Where in the Netherlands?
Maastricht.
Okay.
Which is in the south.
Right. And what did you study?
Economics.
Right.
But I didn't like it from the very start, so I was like, no.
How long did it take it to drop out?
I started school in like August, September, and I already went home in December, so really brief. And I was going through a really bad depression at the time, so I just and then
interesting. So it's so good that you can actually just drop out. I think I kind of wanted to like change courses but I think at the time there were too many things on the line, right? Because like the courses cost a lot to kind of study there. It's a lot of pressure. Whereas I think like maybe it's not as much in Netherlands, right? The cost.
Yeah, because in the UK it's way more expensive, right? Also living is much more expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at the time it was like 3,000 per year, and then plus accommodations was like 5,000 per year in terms of pounds.
Yeah, I didn't.
Which is still quite a lot for like coming from Romania.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I think switching class in UK is not so easy, right?
I mean, it's not impossible. It's pretty easy in the first 3 months, but then like I think the pressure is like you don't want to go up there and be like, oh, I want to switch, I want to tap out, right? You don't want to. It's just like everybody. It's just people are gonna be like, okay, well, I guess come back to Romania. So it's like I don't want to go back to Romania. You know what I mean? Okay. Yeah. How long do you still have? I don't want to keep it too long.
No worries. I still have a bit more time. So up to you. But I'm still working from home, but I blocked out my time and
So how's the? Go ahead. Ask me.
Do you also feel like because you worked in sales?
Yeah.
Do you feel like the sales job prepared you for the career now in comedy?
I mean, not as much comedy as it did me for the production stuff. Because like for the setting up of the shows, it's effectively just sales. You just have to and it's just sales is just like a numbers game, right? You have to reach out to people. You have to kind of just message. People say no constantly. So I think that kind of helped me with the setting up the shows around Europe, because you just learn how to eat shit, right? Just kind of like deal with okay, this is not next one. It's a lot of the problem I found with sales is it's not a lot of intellectually heavy work, right? And you may disagree or not. It's a lot of repetition, right?
For sure.
It's basically sending an email. Hey man, you want to do this? Hey man, you want to do this? Hey man, you want to do this? Blah, 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 blah. Constantly something happens. But then because it's so kind of like mind numbing, a lot of people don't want to do it, and they find it very, very like hard. But then it is the thing that gets the revenue for the company or for your business, right? Yeah. It is the main kind of driver. You need to have a good sales kind of attitude, and it was definitely useful. Oh shit! I got hit the thing. It's fine.
What happened?
No, I just hit the light. Yeah,
the lamp.
The little cover of the lamp.
But don't you think that's generally in life? Like you have to keep going. I mean, everything's a numbers game. Comedy,
exactly. That's why I think it's
dating.
Good, yeah, right? I mean, of course. I mean, that's the thing is it's everything's a numbers game. So I think sales kind of helps whatever career you're in, right?
Yeah.
It's about building a bit of that, like it's tough skin.
Like how I was thinking about this recently. Like as a comedian, we also as a salesperson, we face rejection every single day, right?
Yeah.
And then in stand-up, we bomb even you, like your experience, and you tour everywhere. But even when you try out new jokes, you have to risk bombing.
Yeah, it's constant. Yeah.
Constant. But then, do you have this too? Like even asking out a girl is still sometimes like a bit, like I get nervous.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with asking out girls is like a lot of times it depends on what you want to kind of do, right? Like I've had this conversation with someone else before. Like the way I think of relationships now is like, okay, it's not a priority. It's more just like casual kind of interaction, sex or whatever. So it's not like because there's always the risk of, and this is how I think about it. Might be the wrong way. There's always the risk of like getting emotionally attached, and that kind of causes obstacles for other stuff, right? So you kind of have to make sure you ask out the right type of girl, and you have to also be a bit conscious of like not hurting their feelings or like not misrepresenting, right? So for example, if you just want to have like a chill time, you just make that obvious, and everybody's on the same page, and you go for it. Right. But yeah, you still have you always have like a bit of like, I think that fear of rejection is always there, right? And for me, it's not as much as fear of rejection. It's more like I kind of try to understand the context. I was like, if I ask this girl out and then we're kind of hanging out in the same circles, is it going to make things weird? And I don't want to make things weird. So probably a lot of times, basically, that's why I don't mix like comedy and like dating life, because I don't want to have.
I really respected that what you told me. I hope I can mention this on the podcast. Otherwise, you can edit it out. But, I remember after your last tour, you were touring in a month. You were in 30 cities or something, right?
Yeah.
And I asked you because I saw in pictures it was completely full and it was going really well. So I was like, oh, did you like go on a lot of dates? Like, did you get laid a lot? And then you were like, no, not at all, because I could, but like it would just fuck up with my system.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have to travel, and so it was clear that you're so focused on the comedy, which is a good, right? That's why
it's a matter. Yeah, it's a matter of priorities, right? Like it's not the risk reward kind of like ratio is like not good because it has like a kind of knock on effect, right? If you kind of end up chasing like people after the show, like they have sex with them or whatever, then that's gonna eat into your sleep, which is gonna eat into your productivity, your health as well, right? So it's a knock-on effect. So you have to be serious about what you're doing. Especially like it's so difficult to kind of stand out and do just doing this in Europe like the way that I'm doing it now, and not to kind of like put myself on a pedestal or anything. It's just like the difficulty is so high, right? Because there's no system, there's nobody booking you, there's people don't know who you are, and it's just so many things involved that it's I don't want to. There's no point making my life harder than it is, right? Like, why would you add an extra layer of complexity to it? That's how I think about it.
I guess you also want to have fun.
Yeah, but I guess you can kind of ration that out. It's about delayed gratification, right? Delayed gratification is I think whatever kind of business you're in, if you manage to kind of get delayed gratification, that's kind of like compound, and you can do later on stuff.
Marshmallow principle.
What's the marshmallow principle?
Oh, that's the study with the kids where they gave them.
Oh yeah, exactly, yeah. If
you wait, we're gonna give you more marshmallows. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So you're gonna get more marshmallows in the future, I guess.
But then, will you because even in the future, if everything's on a bigger scale, then you want to chase that more than that.
Yeah, but I think at that time, it's like probably gonna be maybe a bit easier, or like I don't know. You'll have like more. I mean, the way that I kind of envision the future is like you just go out for the weekends to do shows, right? So then you have more time in the city. So like you go Saturdays. That's what happens in the US, right? People just do weekend shows because that's when you can get the most people in. So you want to perform for them large amount of people. But
during the week, don't they still go to the clubs to do?
They just do mics, yeah.
Okay.
But then if you're going to the clubs and do new material, it's okay to kind of get somebody back because you don't have a job next day, right? So you don't have to be on a plane at 6 a.m. You know what I mean? Whereas with in the current context where you do shows during the week, you have to be on a plane at 6 a.m. or like on a train or whatever. And if you miss that, that's like a lot of shit going on. But do
you have actually some comedians you try to model yourself after, who you look up to and stuff?
I mean, recently I've been looking quite aggressive at like Andrew Schultz in terms of like the online presence, because I think he's done a good job. And it's a lot of basically, I mean, what this is gonna sound stupid, but like what Gary Vaynerchuk says about like content is so true, right? You just have to put out stuff constantly, and I'm doing that now every day. Otherwise, people forget about you, right? And then the more you put out, the more people remember. It's like sales. You need like 5 points to kind of you need to reach the person. You mentioned the stuff 5 times.
Numbers game, man.
Yeah, exactly. Until they actually get in their heads. So you just have to put out stuff more and more and more. And I think in terms of like when I'm doing the reviews now, definitely I'm seeing like a path that I want to take and one that I don't want to take. The path of like doing comedy with some form of like cultural significance. I do want to do that to some degree. Also, I also want to be funny and just have jokes. So the way that I kind of look at like maybe doing the stand-up now is I'm thinking, okay, I want to have like a part where it has like some form of message / cultural significance, and a big part that's just jokes, right? It's just like silly jokes or like, you know, very well constructed jokes, just jokes. But I don't want it to be just like one thing that I stray away from is I don't do any relationship material, or if I do, it's just like barely touch on it, because I feel it's like so it's done so much in the context of like, you know, existing stand-up comedy from the US at least. It's just white guys talking about girl problems. Well, it's tough. Or like, well, women, men. I don't do a lot of women, men stuff because I find it a bit too kind of, you know, played out. But yeah, I'd like to do, you know, more cultural stuff. I think, you know, to be honest, I'm not really kind of like Andrew Schulz. I like his technique in terms of like social media presence and stuff, but I don't really like the content of his material that much.
Oh, really?
I think doesn't have a lot of, it's basically just kind of like, you know, it's well constructed, well written, but it's just like inflammatory and kind of like, you know, shock value, right? But it doesn't have a lot of message associated with it. Whereas like, you know, if you look at, I guess, Bill Burr or like, you know, Chappelle actually probably is a good example and a good role model. Or like Chris Rock's, like, you know, Bring the Pain. You know, it hits like hard on some really good topics, and it's also funny. So I kind of like go in that direction. Yeah, like Chappelle, Chris Rock is kind of like direction that maybe I want to go. I don't know if I don't want to go as deep as like Carlin. I don't know if you watch a lot of Carlin, but that's a bit maybe too dark, too negative, I guess now, especially towards his later years. But I really like the Richard Pryor one, where you basically just talk about like, you know, the vulnerability that you put on stage.
Okay.
You just
never seen Carlin, never seen.
You should watch. I mean, you should watch Richard Pryor. I think it's again, it's just about like being very open about, you know, stuff that hurts, right? I like the comedy aspect that you can basically, it's kind of like alchemy. You turn pain into joy, right? So I kind of want to see, okay, how, that's why I've kind of been experimenting with this idea of like, you know, the coronavirus, everything, people died, it's terrible, you know, but if you don't extract some form of joy out of it, then it will have been for nothing, I guess.
So, that's very Viktor Frankl philosophy, like.
Really?
The meaning of what's the book called? Meaning of life, meaning of man, I think.
Meaning of man. Well, check it out.
Viktor Frankl. Yeah, he just wrote. He's a Holocaust survivor, and he said, in any suffering, always think of why you might be going through it and take the lesson out of it. Otherwise, the suffering is meaningless.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like, you know, if you don't find some form of purpose to this kind of suffering, then it's just like, you know, if you don't extract some form of joy out of it, then it's just like
man's search of meaning. That's what it's called.
That's what it is. Yeah. It's basically just like it's just pain in a void. What the fuck?
Right.
Which is like, okay, well, this shit. That's why I'm trying to do jokes about the Sudanese child soldiers. You know, which is again super difficult topic to joke about, but like, otherwise it's just like, you know, well, these people suffered and they died. that was their existence, you know. It's like, well, that's not very nice.
No.
You know? So that's why
so
I think like, but
oh yeah, no, please.
No, I'm trying to think in that direction in terms of like, where do you want to take it, right? So try to give some form of meaning to the pointless, you know, suffering.
Do you actually set up like 5-year plans and stuff for yourself?
I mean, I to be honest with you, I kind of did that. I kind of like, since this pandemic, I haven't been as efficient as I could have been. I used to have like what was it? The Google thing. What was the Google thing? I have it in my Asana. No, not Sprint. It was Google Planning. I forgot what it's called. Give me a second. I'll tell you in a second now. The object. What was it? Object.
OKRs.
OKRs. That's what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had some OKRs set up, but then like they kind of got fucked because of the pandemic. So I need to like reassess them, and I've kind of been procrastinating reassessing them. Because I was like, oh, I'm going to do 200, 300 shows this year. You're going to figure out more. You're going to do more stuff, or like, you know, generate this amount of revenue. But like now it's like, you know? So like, to be honest, I think I got a bit demoralized with the whole pandemic thing. Because like, okay, we don't know what's going to happen, right? Yeah. So that's why I try to refocus and reshape it and kind of remodel it towards YouTube. This amount of followers, this amount of views, but it hasn't quite. YouTube is also a different beast to crack, right?
But it's going really well for you, it seems.
I mean, it's going okay. It's not as fast as I wanted it to be. I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm getting a lot of influx with TikTok. I guess that's been helpful.
And you already have 2K almost, right? 1,600, something like that.
One on
subscribers on YouTube.
No, just 1.5. I have 1.5, almost 1.
I mean, but that's already really good. I mean, now it's just gonna keep rolling.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of basically progress since the start of the year. But yeah, it's just not my ideal way of spending time, right? So I think this is one of the reasons why it's not kind of going as fast, because like I'm doing it because I have to, not because I want to, I guess. It's
have you always been like this so goal driven and so precise and dreaming big? I mean, we talked about dreaming big before. Or is it since you entered comedy that this
I think when I entered, I think I've always kind of wanted to do something big, to be honest. Like, but it's always been like, oh, start a company, you do something, become whatever, make this amount of money. I guess it's always been like some form of bigger what's next. Which again, it wasn't. I don't know if it was necessarily. It wasn't from. I think it was more of a sense of duty. I was like, oh, I managed to get out of Romania and study in the UK. I should do something with my life. That's where it kind of came from, right?
Okay.
And it's like I should do something with my life. What? I don't know, but I should do something. So then just try to go hard on everything you go, right? But then because you don't know exactly what you're gonna do, you end up kind of like, consuming yourself with doing as much. You don't know where you're going, so you're just kind of like running a lot in circles, right?
Okay. But at least you're focusing on the things you do have control over. As you mentioned,
yes.
the
so
pandemic,
that's what I'm doing now. With the YouTube stuff, at least I can have control of this, right? Yeah, it's a bit of a it's definitely. I mean, I'm happy that the shows are coming back, and I think I'm getting back into writing. I had like the past 2 weeks have not been that great in terms of productivity, which is why I've kind of been procrastinating this podcast as well, right? But I guess now that the shows are coming back, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I should write this material, and I try it, and you have that. At least you have the the process, the loop. Okay, try what doesn't work. You have like the system back in place.
Do you set goals for your podcast? Because I'm especially curious because I also started a podcast recently. So
I haven't actually, because I wasn't thinking about it that seriously, I guess. But now I'm like, now the goal is just put something out every week, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because if you look at the Joe Rogan stuff, especially with
Oh, since then that motivated you to the 100 million deal.
Yeah, no, it's not so the 100 million deal. It's about like, just putting stuff constantly out, right? It's again going back to the Vaynerchuk thing about like constantly having stuff out, right?
Yeah.
And people knowing, and it's different, touching different things. I guess with Joe Rogan, he does like 4 or 5 podcasts a week, right?
That's insane.
And I was watching like this podcast with Charlemagne and Andrew Schultz, and they're talking about how like it's not about, you're not buying you're buying the personality, right? People are watching it, Joe Rogan, they're watching it because of personality. So everything you do is your personality, and people are kind of getting into that, right? Sorry, did I blow your ears? How bad?
Insane.
So yeah, the idea is like, how do you take more of, and I guess this is where the whole conversation of self-worth kind of comes in, right? I guess as I'm kind of doing more of the TikTok views and the YouTube stuff, it's like, oh, people want to watch it because I'm in it and because I'm doing something, right? Which is kind of like,
right.
Maybe like, okay, I should put more stuff out because people don't necessarily into the comedy. They're interested in like what I'm doing. But again, before that, maybe I didn't have the thought process of like, oh, people want to know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Maybe this is kind of like one of those self-worth side effects. You're like, okay, it's no point in doing it because nobody's interested, right?
Right. So you're building your own brand and then branching out into several mediums, right?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is to kind of keep doing more of that and, see where it leads. And I think the podcast is also a good way to kind of just, voice out different things, talk about stuff, and, put stuff out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll see what goes. I mean, I have like 48 episodes now, and I think it's, it's going okay. Do you guys also record your podcast?
We also use Zoom, actually.
Okay. And then the mics, right?
Mics, but yeah, we have very cheap mics, but we're gonna upgrade soon because many people have complained that the audio is shit. So
yeah, I think the audio is shit for mine as well. So I think I need to kind of improve that. Because I usually go ahead.
Yeah, I listened to yours just before. I mean, it was actually really good.
I do it with the last one I did with this, but then usually I do it with this, which I think is okay, and then I have some lav mics, and I don't think it was that big of an issue. But if Ken is like, sometimes I listen to like the Joe Rogan ones or like the other podcasters is like, okay, sound is much better.
Oh, right.
So then I'm thinking, if I want to buy like a fixed mic, is it really worth it? Am I going to be here that long to have a fixed mic? Am I going to do more of a Zoom? I don't know. So we'll see.
Regarding that, actually, I mean, do you have specific plans on when to move?
To move
out of Berlin?
Not yet. I think the next couple of years. I was actually thinking about that last night. I was thinking, the next step would have to be like going to New York and try to do some more stuff there. But I think like again, the reason why would you want to go to New York is just kind of so you can kind of, basically compete with some of the higher, the more,
for sure,
the higher tier talent, right? In the stand-up world, because I think that's where it kind of congregates. But then again, it's just the problem with the visa is there, right? How do you get to the visa? So I still think the goal with that is go there when you're already like really good comedian, right? So then I think now what my mindset is I want to have like 3 hours of really good written material, and then kind of work with them. Then once because I think after watching and analyzing a lot of comedians, I see that it really is like the tipping point is a lot of times it's like 3-4 hours of free. Sorry, before it used to be like 5 hours, but now it's slowly going down to like 3 hours of solid material already available for people to watch until it pushes you towards like, okay. Because even like, you have to have a lot of good content out there to people to kind of, basically be like, oh, okay, this guy's good,
Right,
if you put like a 5-minute video, that's not going to be enough. You need to have like, once they see 5, they want to see 5 more, and then more, and then more, and then more, right?
Right.
So where my mind is now is like I have to write, 3 hours of really good comedy, put them out, and then once they're out, then push a bit harder to maybe try to get, either it's going to get viral by itself on YouTube, either try to sell it to somebody, or I think once that body of work of 3 hours is out, things will kind of start happening by itself.
Okay. So I mean, we talked about the visa thing too, right? We're talking about Jim Jeffries, how he didn't get a visa even after HBO special, like it was super hard, like
what the fuck, right?
Yeah.
Because you need to prove that you're of extraordinary ability, right?
But he is. I mean, HBO specials, like,
Exactly. I think at that time, basically, insane. I think, in all honesty, I think it's going to be easier now than it was then, because at that time, Libby stand-up wasn't as respected,
right,
as it was before. You didn't have like a lot of, especially coming from outside of the US, it wasn't as respected, right?
Right.
Now you have like Trevor Noah, Sloss, you have Jimmy Carr, you have a couple of more, Jim Jeffries as well, a couple of more people that can be counted as extraordinary ability.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely, and the Hannah Gatsby as well. There's a lot more people that are doing well.
Did you watch the Douglas already?
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, it would be difficult to top the previous one, right? It's an okay special, but it's some elements that are not quite stand-up comedy. She does a good job. It's great, but again, it still doesn't fit within that stand-up comedy box. Which again, you don't have to, but I could see why some people kind of would not put her in the top of the comedy, whatever, or like not. It's not a fair comparison. It's basically like, let's say if you do a musical stand-up with a guitar and the guy's just one guy with a mic, is that a fair comparison?
Good point.
Yeah, because a lot of time, so this conversation came up when the Hong Kong comedy festival happened 2 years ago, when this girl won with a ukulele, and then people were like, fuck man, this is not, like everybody's going there without props, and then she has a prop, so why is that allowed? So I think this was the same situation with like Hannah Gatsby now. It's like she makes use of slides in the show, and basically, again, the first 30 minutes are very slow, but then she started bringing slides. She started using different kind of elements. Like when I'm watching
slides, like PowerPoint slides.
Yeah, which again, it's funny, but then it's not the. I guess
it's like a TED talk.
It's not. I mean, it's the way it's funny the way she does it, but it's the use of props. So a lot of times people don't.
I mean, it's her show. She can set the rules, right?
Exactly, it's her show. She can set the rules, right? But I guess a lot of time the comedians they look at it as apples versus pears.
Okay.
Versus apples versus apples. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think this is where the issue is. They're not the same things. They should put in the same box. I guess this is the issue people had with I think Nanette as well. Comparing pears to apricots or whatever, or like I don't know what fruit is sad. You know what I mean?
I hear great things about the special. I've not seen it yet, but
yeah, it's a special. It's a show. Right. Do you want to talk a bit more, or should we kind of wrap it up? I think we're always on 1 hour.
Yeah, I have to slowly wrap it up.
Okay. Right. Well, I think we can wrap it up there, man. It's good to kind of learn a bit more about your Korean, Austrian upbringing. You want to add a bit more there? Do you have any other Korean, Austrian elements you want to bring in the mix? How is that kind of reflecting in your comedy?
I don't know. I mean, I talk a little bit about it, but I might want to do more of it, but more with emotional. Like I'll link it to emotions, as you said.
I think
but
you don't
I love
have
to see.
Go that deep, or you're still very early on, right? So I don't think you have to go that. I think you're just kind of getting control over the jokes, right? The struggle, just making set a punch, right? And then you can, because I think the emotional stuff, of course, you can kind of dabble with it, and it's you can see if it works or not. But I guess it's more of an advanced kind of thing. But then as long as you have control over because even now, like I'm trying to do emotional, but I'm aware there has to be jokes in it, right?
Right.
It has to be delivered in a way where people are like, it's not like 15 minutes of talking. It has to be like comedy.
Right.
So yeah, play around with it, see how it goes. Hopefully we can do some more shows. But yeah, come down today if you have if you're around at the comedy show at the cafe. I wasn't able to.
I already have plans today. I just heard about it yesterday that you're
but we're trying.
It's a weekly thing, right?
I think after this one we'll see. Basically we have to we'll do the first one and then we reassess and see how it goes from there.
Okay.
Good stuff, man. Good chatting with you.
Do you have any recommendations actually?
For what, regarding stand up?
Actually, yeah, reading. So what's your favorite book? And regarding stand up.
I guess
especially when you're starting out.
Thinking Fast and Slow is still one of my favorite books because I think it's still very, very relevant to stand up. Do you know Thinking Fast and Slow?
Yeah, I've read it actually. But why is that relevant?
It's just I've read it like about 5-6 times. It's about just understanding how the mind works, right? Because a lot of times stand up is about tricking the mind. Or the other one, and it's like, understanding what are the biases. Some people, laugh with their, system one, right? Where basically they don't require a lot of, you can make jokes for system one and then you make jokes for system two. So a lot of time they'll laugh because of pattern recognition or funny word like Scooby-Doo or whatever that comes from system one. And then more emotional stuff or the more, like for example, Chappelle does stuff that is a bit more well worded, but also with history kind of information requires more brain in action from your side, right? So then that's the stuff that gets remembered where you have to put a bit more effort in.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah, so kind of like modeling jokes for like, thinking, okay, this is, the Norwegians, they killed themselves. That's the system one joke. And the system two is like let's say the joke about the name, what will the neighbors say? What will the neighbors think?
Right.
That's kind of thinking. So then, people are going to remember the what will the neighbors think, but they're not going to remember the Norwegians killed themselves joke, right?
Okay.
Because, that doesn't require as much mental intensity as the first one. So I think that's that's how I think about it in that perspective.
It's insane how much a thought goes into a joke, right? People don't notice.
8 hours, bro, I've been working on this joke. So it's like, what the fuck am I doing, It's still not there. And I was looking for my notes now. Like some of the stuff that I'm working on or like that. I've been working on stuff like a year and a half, 2 years. I'm like, fuck. But yeah, it's fucking thing. Yeah, I'll do it. It's fine.
But as soon as you have it, then you're going to be so happy, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Once it's there, it's like, boom,
Right.
All right. Well, thanks a lot.
I mean, Gary Goldman said his favorite joke was like 15 years, right? Or something.
Which one was it?
The alphabet joke, the initial joke.
Yeah. Exactly.
Took him 15,
This is the thing. So you have to kind of strike a balance between like taking a long time to kind of write these jokes and at the same time, also not creating new material, right? Because the problem is if you work on one joke forever, then you're still going to be left behind because other people, sometimes it's, the jokes don't have to be the best ones. They just have to be, you know what I mean? This is one of the issues. People just want to consume content. So yeah, sometimes, if the joke is, let's say it's not the best, it's a bit more mediocre. People, it's still a joke. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt because they don't laugh.
Right.
But they still want, but the good ones are going to be the ones that are going to be remembered, right?
Right.
I think.
Thanks so much for having me on. And honestly, like I mean this, like I tell everyone, I'm a huge fan of yours. I look up to you, and like you brought me into comedy in a way, and I always like respect your jokes, but like your hustle and just everything.
Just bring it, pass it forward, man. Bring more people in, Just like it's like a cult. It's like a pyramid scheme,
Sure. The Labrador cult.
That it is, yeah. Okay, man. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the evening. I'll talk to you soon. Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah. See ya.